Part 1. The Rules. The city of Detroit was a place where the past and present collided in a cacophony of crumbling infrastructure and modern desperation. It was a city that never slept, but not in the way that bustling metropolises like New York or Tokyo did. Detroit's sleeplessness was born of unease, a constant hum of tension that seemed to seep from the cracked sidewalks and abandoned buildings. It was in this city that I found myself working as an ATM repair technician, a job that paid the bills but often left me feeling like a ghost, moving through the streets unnoticed, servicing machines that dispensed cash to people who rarely looked me in the eye. The job itself was straightforward enough. ATMs broke down, and I fixed them. But there were rules, strange, specific rules that came with the territory. Rules that weren't written down anywhere but were passed on from one technician to the next, whispered in break rooms or over staticky phone calls. Rules that, if broken, could lead to consequences far worse than a malfunctioning machine. The first rule was simple: never work alone after midnight. This one made sense, at least on the surface. Detroit wasn't the safest city, and the last thing anyone wanted was to be caught in a dark alley with thousands of dollars in cash. But there was something about the way the other technicians said it, their voices dropping to a hush, their eyes darting around as if someone, or something, might be listening. It wasn't just about safety. It was about something else, something they wouldn't, or couldn't, explain. The second rule was more peculiar: always knock 3 times before opening the ATM. This one seemed like a joke at first, something the older guys said to mess with the newbies. But the first time I saw a seasoned technician named Carl knock 3 times on an ATM before opening it, his face pale and his hands trembling, I knew it wasn't a joke. When I asked him why, he just shook his head and muttered, "You don't want to know." The third rule was the most unsettling: if the screen displays error 37, walk away. Do not touch the machine. Do not call for backup. Just walk away. I had never seen an error 37, and none of the other technicians would tell me what it meant. They would only say that it was rare, but when it happened, you knew. And you didn't stick around to find out more. For the first few months, I followed the rules without question. The job was strange, but it paid well, and the rules were easy enough to follow. But then, one night, everything changed. It was a cold, rainy night in late October. The kind of night where the rain feels like needles against your skin and the wind howls like a wounded animal. I had just finished repairing an ATM in a quiet part of the city, the kind of place where the streetlights flickered and the shadows seemed to move on their own. As I packed up my tools, my phone buzzed with a new assignment. An ATM downtown was malfunctioning, and I was the only one available to fix it. I hesitated. It was past midnight, and the first rule echoed in my mind: never work alone after midnight. But the assignment was urgent, and I needed the overtime. I told myself I would be quick, in and out before anything could go wrong. The ATM was located in a narrow alley between 2 abandoned buildings. The rain had turned the pavement into a slick, reflective surface, and the only light came from the flickering neon sign of a nearby bar. As I approached the machine, I noticed something strange. The screen was dark, but the keypad was lit up, the numbers glowing in eerie green. I reached out to press the service button, but then I remembered the second rule: always knock 3 times before opening the ATM. I hesitated again, my hand hovering over the machine. It was just a superstition, I told myself. A silly ritual that meant nothing. But something about the way the keypad glowed, the way the shadows seemed to shift around me, made me pause. Slowly, reluctantly, I knocked 3 times on the side of the ATM. The sound echoed in the empty alley, sharp and unnatural. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft whir, the screen flickered to life. The words, "Error 37, flashed in bold red letters. My heart skipped a beat. The third rule screamed in my mind: if the screen displays error 37, walk away. Do not touch the machine. Do not call for backup. Just walk away. But I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the ground, my eyes locked on the screen. The red letters pulsed like a heartbeat, and I could have sworn I heard a faint whisper, a voice that seemed to come from inside the machine. "Help me." The voice was soft, almost inaudible, but it sent a chill down my spine. I took a step back, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. This wasn't possible. Machines didn't talk. They didn't whisper. And yet, the voice was there, clear and unmistakable. Help me. I turned and ran, my tools forgotten, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop until I was back in my truck, the engine roaring to life as I sped away from the alley. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see if the shadows were following me. When I got home, I tried to convince myself that it had been my imagination, a trick of the rain and the wind. But deep down, I knew better. The rules weren't just rules. They were warnings. And I had broken them. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't bring myself to go back to work, not after what had happened. But as the day wore on, I found myself thinking about the ATM, about the voice I had heard. What if it had been real? What if someone, or something, was trapped inside that machine? By the time the sun set, I had made up my mind. I had to go back. I had to know the truth. Part 2. The Whisper. The alley was even darker the second time around. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with moisture, and the flickering neon sign cast long, distorted shadows across the pavement. My footsteps echoed as I approached the ATM, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to keep moving. I had to know what was inside that machine. The ATM looked the same as it had the night before, the screen dark and the keypad glowing that eerie green. I hesitated for a moment, then knocked 3 times on the side of the machine. The sound was sharp, almost metallic, and it seemed to hang in the air long after I had stopped. The screen flickered to life, the words Error 37, flashing in bold red letters. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The voice had come from inside the machine, I was sure of it. But how? And why? I reached into my bag and pulled out a small flashlight, shining it into the ATM's interior. The light reflected off the metal components, casting strange shadows on the walls of the alley. At first, everything looked normal, the cash cassettes, the receipt printer, the circuit boards. But then I noticed something strange. There was a small, black box tucked away in the corner of the machine, connected to the main circuit board by a series of wires. It wasn't part of the standard ATM setup. I had never seen anything like it before. I reached in to pull the box out, but as soon as my fingers touched it, a jolt of electricity shot up my arm. I yelped and pulled my hand back, shaking it to get rid of the tingling sensation. The box was warm to the touch, almost as if it had a life of its own. Help me. The voice was louder this time, more insistent. It was coming from the box. I could feel it vibrating in my hand, the sound resonating through my bones. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of prank? A hidden speaker, maybe? But the voice sounded too real, too human. Who are you? I whispered, my voice trembling. There was a long pause, and then the voice spoke again, softer this time. I'm trapped. Please, help me. The words sent a chill down my spine. Trapped? How could someone be trapped inside an ATM? It didn't make any sense. And yet, the voice was there, clear and unmistakable. How did you get in there? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The voice didn't answer right away. When it did, it sounded distant, almost mournful. I don't know. I don't remember. It's dark. So dark. Please, get me out. I didn't know what to do. My rational mind told me to walk away, to call the police or someone who could handle this. But something about the voice, the desperation in it, made me hesitate. I couldn't just leave someone, or something, trapped in that machine. I took a deep breath and reached for the box again. This time, there was no jolt of electricity, but the warmth was still there, pulsing faintly. I carefully disconnected the wires and pulled the box out of the ATM. It was heavier than I expected, and the surface was covered in strange symbols that I didn't recognize. They looked almost like hieroglyphs, but they were too intricate, too alien. Thank you, the voice whispered, softer now. But it's not over. They're coming. Who's coming? I asked, my heart pounding. The voice didn't answer. Instead, the box began to vibrate violently in my hands, the symbols glowing a faint red. I dropped it instinctively, and it hit the ground with a loud clang. The glow intensified, spreading out from the box in a wave of light that seemed to consume the alley. I shielded my eyes, but the light was blinding, and I felt a strange pressure in my chest, as if the air itself was being sucked away. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the light vanished. The alley was dark again, the only sound the faint hum of the neon sign. The box was gone, and so was the ATM. In its place was a door that hadn't been there before. It was old, made of heavy wood with iron hinges. The surface was covered in the same strange symbols that had been on the box, and they glowed faintly in the darkness. I reached out to touch it, but before I could, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a yawning black void beyond. "Help me!" the voice whispered again, but this time it was coming from inside the door. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me to run, to get as far away from that door as possible. But the voice, it sounded so desperate, so human. I couldn't just leave it. I took a deep breath and stepped through the door. Part 3. The Other Side. The moment I crossed the threshold, the world around me changed. The alley was gone, replaced by a vast, empty void. The ground beneath my feet was solid, but there was no sky, no horizon, just an endless expanse of darkness. The only light came from the door behind me, which was slowly closing. I turned back, panic rising in my chest. "Wait!" I shouted, but the door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through the void. The symbols on its surface glowed faintly, then faded, leaving me in complete darkness. "Help me!" the voice whispered again, but it was different now. It was coming from all around me, echoing in the emptiness. I spun around, trying to find the source, but there was nothing, just darkness. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Here," the voice replied, and suddenly, a faint light appeared in the distance. It was small, barely more than a pinprick, but it was enough to give me a sense of direction. I started walking toward it, my footsteps echoing in the void. As I got closer, the light grew brighter, and I began to make out shapes in the darkness. They were faint at first, like shadows on the edge of my vision, but as I approached, they became more defined. They were people, or at least, they had once been people. Their forms were twisted, distorted, as if they had been stretched and pulled in ways that defied logic. Their faces were blank, featureless, and they moved with a jerky, unnatural gait. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The figures didn't seem to notice me at first, but as I stood there, one of them turned its head in my direction. Its blank face seemed to stare right through me, and I felt a cold, numbing fear wash over me. "Help me!" the voice whispered again, and this time, it was coming from one of the figures. It was closer now, just a few feet away. I could see its mouth moving, but the words didn't match the movement. It was as if the voice was coming from somewhere else, somewhere deep inside the figure. I took a step back, but the figure moved with me, its movements jerky and unnatural. The other figures began to turn as well, their blank faces all focused on me. I could feel their eyes, or whatever passed for eyes, on me, and the fear in my chest grew stronger. What are you?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it reached out toward me, its hand twisted and elongated. I stumbled back, but the other figures were closing in, their movements slow but deliberate. I could feel the cold radiating from them, a chill that seeped into my bones. "Help me!" the voice whispered again, but it was different now. It was no longer desperate. It was cold, almost mocking. The figures were closer now, their twisted forms looming over me. I could feel their presence pressing down on me, suffocating me. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the void. The light was still there, but it was farther away now, and the figures were closing in. I could feel their cold breath on the back of my neck, their twisted hands reaching out to grab me. And then, just as I thought I couldn't run anymore, I saw it, a door. It was the same door I had come through, the same symbols glowing faintly on its surface. I didn't know how it had gotten there, but I didn't care. I threw myself at it, my hands fumbling with the handle. The door opened, and I stumbled through, collapsing onto the cold, wet pavement of the alley. The door slammed shut behind me, and the symbols faded, leaving no trace that it had ever been there. I lay there for a moment, my heart pounding, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The alley was quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the neon sign. The ATM was gone, and so was the box. It was as if none of it had ever happened. But I knew better. The figures, the void, the voice, they were real. And they were still out there, waiting. Part 4. The Truth. I didn't go back to work after that. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the twisted figures, their blank faces staring at me, their cold hands reaching out to grab me. I tried to convince myself that it had all been a hallucination, a product of stress and exhaustion. But deep down, I knew better. The rules weren't just rules. They were warnings. And I had broken them. I spent the next few days researching, trying to find out what had happened to me. I scoured the internet for any mention of Error 37, but there was nothing, just a few vague references to a glitch that had been patched years ago. I tried to find information about the black box, the strange symbols, but again, there was nothing. It was as if the whole thing had been erased from existence. But then, I found something. It was an old forum post, buried deep in the archives of a site that hadn't been updated in years. The post was from someone who claimed to have worked as an ATM technician in Detroit in the 90s. They talked about the rules, the same rules I had been told, and they mentioned something else, something that sent a chill down my spine. They called it the Gateway. According to the post, the Gateway was a device, a black box that had been installed in certain ATMs as part of an experiment. The experiment was supposed to be a way to test new security measures, but something had gone wrong. The Gateway had opened a door to another world, a world that was never meant to be accessed. And once the door was open, it couldn't be closed. The post ended with a warning. If you ever see Error 37, run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just run. I read the post over and over, trying to make sense of it. It sounded like the plot of a bad horror movie, but it matched what I had experienced. The black box, the door, the void, it all fit. But what did it mean? What was on the other side of that door? And why had the voice asked for help? I didn't have any answers, and I didn't want to find out. I quit my job the next day, packed up my things, and left Detroit. I told myself it was for the best, that I needed to start over somewhere new. But no matter how far I ran, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. And then, one night, I saw it. I was in a new city, in a new apartment, but the feeling was the same. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when I heard it, a faint whisper, coming from the corner of the room. "Help me." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice was the same, but it was different now. It was colder, more insistent. I could feel it pressing down on me, suffocating me. I turned on the light, but the room was empty. The whisper was gone, but I knew it would be back. It was always there, just on the edge of my hearing, waiting. I don't know how much longer I can hold out. The rules were there for a reason, and I broke them. Now, I'm paying the price. The gateway is still open, and the things on the other side are waiting. They're coming for me, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. So if you